about sports gambling. It has turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's money Governor Kevin Stitt says Oklahoma's missing out on. Our Capitol reporter, Haley Wager, sat down with the governor to discuss his recent sports betting proposal.
Sports betting started expanding across the U.S. in 2018 after the Supreme Court ruled to allow each state to determine its own sports betting laws. Today, at least 35 states have legalized sports gambling, and all but 2 states have proposed some type of legislation to legalize in-person or mobile sports books.
I'd heard from a lot of Oklahomans that were already betting kind of an out-of-state.
Governor Stitt's recent proposal allows casinos to open brick-and-mortar sports books taxed at 15% and mobile sports betting taxed at 20%.
I looked at all 35 states, came up with kind of the average of what those states are getting.
The tribes criticized Stitt's plan, saying they want to keep exclusive gaming rights that are protected under the State Tribal Gaming Act.
It doesn't preclude the casinos from getting a statewide mobile license, but it also doesn't preclude DraftKings or FanDuel or a local business person from coming in.
Our neighbors in Kansas raked in almost $7 million in state revenue from $1.85 billion in wagers just in their first year of legalizing sports books, according to the Kansas Lottery.
But we know it's happening, and so we wanted to regulate it, make sure the state is transparent, it's auditable, and the state gets a fair and reasonable compensation for that.
Stitt says legalizing it here could provide up to $100 million for education or allow for tax cuts.
My job is to think about what's best for all 4 million Oklahomans.
We have a link to the full interview with Governor Stitt discussing his sports betting proposal on our website. At the Capitol for Oklahoma's Own, I'm Haley Wager. I was here at the Capitol Monday when Ryan Walters was sworn in after covering his campaign for months and his election win in November. Now we're looking ahead, talking with the new state superintendent about the changes he has planned for Oklahoma education.
It's an incredible responsibility. In every decision I make, I'm going to put kids first. I'm going to always do what I think is best for kids. I'm going to always try to make sure that every single Oklahoma student in every part of the state has the best opportunity at success possible.
So what is the first thing you're going to tackle as state superintendent, and how exactly do you plan to do that?
Now, I really see this as there's 3 items that we've really got to tackle really quickly in education. The first is getting the indoctrination out of the classroom. We have to get a focus back on the basics. We have to reject this radicalism from the far left that's injected itself into our schools. Our kids are not reading on the grade on the grade level that they should. They aren't proficient in math in the way that they should. And what we need is a refocus on those basics. When I talk to parents across the state, they want to know that their kids are getting a great education. They want to know that their kids are getting the skills necessary to enter the workforce. The second is we have got to get more power to parents. We've got to empower our parents. We've got to give them the choices. We've got to give them the transparency to see what's going on in their schools. And the last one is we have got to get the federal government out of dictating education policy to our schools. We as Oklahomans should determine what our education system looks like, what our schools look like, not Joe Biden, not the federal government. So those are 3 things that I'm going to look to tackle from day one.
And what Walters calls the ultimate change in education, the Parent Choice Program. The voucher program would create a way for parents to pay for private school tuition with public school dollars. But realistically, how soon could it be put in place?
We need full parental empowerment as soon as humanly possible. At this legislative session, we need full parental freedom in their kids' education. Parents should be the decision maker in their kids' education. I am unequivocal about that. There's nobody who knows best for kids than their mom and their dad. The faster that we empower parents in that way, the faster our kids will get a better education.
Some people have brought up concerns, specifically rural teachers and teachers in maybe some lower income areas that they may be out of a job. That this may bring up some problems for those teachers. What do you have to say to that?
The more you empower parents, the more you're going to hear parents going out and seeking out the best teachers. They're going to seek out more supports for those great teachers. They're going to reward districts that actually take care of their teachers.
I know one of the big problems, not just here, but everywhere, is the teacher shortage. How do you plan to combat that?
We have got to find the best and brightest teachers, and they've got to make more money. And then the thing that we've got to do is we've got to utilize the best and brightest teachers to help onboard new teachers, to help provide supports and training to teachers that are struggling.
Big changes are coming, and soon. Here's Superintendent Ryan Walters' message to parents, educators, and students.
When you support parents, when you put kids first, and when you support our teachers, we can have an incredible education system. And so I'm really excited about that. Parents, I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to champion you as the person who knows best for your kids. And I'm going to continue to make decisions on what I feel are the kids' best interests and putting parents in charge of their kids' education.
Haley Wager, Oklahoma's own News 9. Both the Senate and House say education is the top priority, but they're not on the same page of what that legislation looks like.
Senate Bill 16.
Senate Bill 416.
A sound that's become common
Senate Bill
in the Capitol.
Or Senate Bill 16.
Bills being introduced on education.
Senate Bill 531.
Senate Bill 529.
Passing through the Senate.
I declare the bill to have passed.
Now headed over to the House.
Senate Bill 416.
Senate Bill 16.
Senate Bill
Now could be a very uncommon sound.
We are prepared not to consider any further education bills this session until those two bills are considered on the Senate floor.
House Speaker Charles McCall wants their tax credit and public funding bills heard without amendments.
Amending those two bills is everything's dead on arrival.
You know, I cannot control what the other chamber does, and it's certainly their purview to bring bills to the floor or not. And again, that's not what I'm going to worry about as I advance for the things that we believe in as a Senate.
Many of the high price tag Senate education bills are written by Senator Adam Pugh.
Every year, education tends to be an issue that rises to the surface as maybe the most important thing that we deal with in terms of an area of policy.
Senator Pugh's priorities from the beginning have been to recruit, retain, reward, and reform education.
And we're going to continue to advance the bills that we believe in. And like any bill that we receive from the House of Representatives, we'll give it the proper consideration.
Despite the comments from the other side of the chamber, Pugh says he's hopeful the Senate and House can come to an agreement on an education plan.
This is about what is the best education policy for the state of Oklahoma.
For Oklahoma's own, I'm Haley Wager. Over 3,000 bills will be presented at the Capitol this legislative session. We'll hear about reform in education, crime and punishment, healthcare, and more. With Oklahoma having one of the strictest abortion bans in the country, some legislators are looking to make some amendments and exceptions. House Bill 1656 gives some exceptions to criminalizing abortions. It reads that a person shall not purposely perform or attempt to perform an abortion unless the pregnancy is the result of a rape, sexual assault, or incest that has been reported to law enforcement. This was written by Representative Marcus McIntyre. Senator Warren Hamilton wrote a few abortion bills. Senate Bill 402 would create the Prenatal Equal Protection Act. This would allow for a mother to be prosecuted for an abortion. It also specifies that the same criminal code relates to an unborn child to any other victim. Senate Bill 614 and 345 would prohibit gender reassignment medical treatment for minors. Senate Bill 878 would create the Oklahoma Save Adolescents from Experimentation Act, prohibiting gender transition surgeries. Senate Bill 1100 would increase penalties for fentanyl trafficking. At least 30 bills deal with medical marijuana. Senate Bill 163 and 156 would both increase minimum wage. And one of the most talked about topics going into this session, education. Senator Pugh outlined over a dozen education bills dealing with paid maternity leave, minimum teacher salary, and incentive programs. Around 300 education bills will be heard, including transgender bathroom bills, firearms in schools, voucher programs, banned books, and House Bill 1775 modifications. Session kicks off on Monday with Governor Stitt's State of the State address. Haley Wager, Oklahoma's own News 9.
Thanks. State lawmakers have reached an agreement on a plan to fund public education.
And they're calling it a historic deal. Our Capitol reporter Haley Wager joins us live right now to break it all down for us. Haley?
That's right, Amanda. Carl, after months of negotiations, Republican lawmakers are celebrating what they call a big win for Oklahoma education. This education package will fund teacher pay raises, paid maternity leave, and pilot programs for reading and school safety programs. Now, this will cost the state $625 million in recurring funding. Here's where that money's going. $500 million will go into the funding formula. This will include funding teacher pay raises, giving $3,000 to $6,000 to teachers based on years of experience. The remaining money will be dispersed to public schools in the state. Now, there will also be $125 million put into the state's Redbud funding. That's grant money going to lower income schools. And finally, teachers in the state will get 6 weeks of paid maternity leave.
Even though we did have different ideas in the beginning, we did collaborate and come together as colleagues and as friends with one goal in mind, and that goal was to help children.
Now, this does not include the tax credits for private and homeschool families. That's a separate plan that House Speaker Charles McCall said today he plans to send to the governor's desk as soon as this public school funding plan is signed into law. Live at the Capitol for Oklahoma's Own, I'm Haley Wager.
News 9 Capitol reporter Haley Wager joins us live with the legislators' thoughts on this report.
She actually was the first to get her hands on these documents today as they were filed. Haley?
That's right, Amanda Carl. I waited inside this building behind me for hours this morning, waiting to get these documents coming over from the Attorney General's office. I was the only one in the building at that point, just waiting to break this news. I spoke with a lawmaker who's been pushing for a decision like this to be made for years.
Unbelievable.
That's how Representative Kevin McDougal describes this decision.
Now we see that errors can be made and you can remain on death row for 27 years.
Attorney General Gentner Drummond released the motion to vacate Richard Glossop's conviction, saying it is critical that Oklahomans have absolute faith that the death penalty is administered fairly and with certainty.
I'm a guy that's for the death penalty, but we have to make sure that our death penalty in Oklahoma is right and just, and that if we put someone to death, they're deserving of it. And I've personally believed that Richard Glossop was not deserving of it.
Representative McDougal has worked with the past 3 attorneys general to try to get reviews of Glossop's case, saying Drummond is the first to have 2 external reviews of the case.
The Attorney General is very hard on crime, but I believe he's very just as well, and this proves it.
Drummond says his decision came down to a false testimony from the state's key witness, Justin Sneed.
There's so many things with this case that were just wrong.
This decision doesn't mean Glossop's innocent.
Now he gets to go and get a fair trial for the first time in 27 years.
The case is now in the hands of the Criminal Court of Appeals to decide whether or not Glossop will get another trial after all these years.
I think personally that if it goes back to trial, that they'll see that Richard Glossop does not deserve the death penalty.
And McDougal says he hopes the Court of Appeals takes quick action with this decision. We reached out to the governor's office and they declined to comment at this time. Live at the Capitol for Oklahoma's Own, I'm Haley Wager.